I was selected to join Apple AI/ML in Seattle as an engineering program manager.
Do product managers need to have technical expertise?
Naman, that's $1 million question, my friend. And I think this is gonna make it to the YouTube beginning of the.
When I applied for the Google Technical Program Manager position, I remember one of the questions being, how would you explain primary key in SQL to a 5-year-old?
Product management company X and product management company Y might be doing very different things.
If you're just constantly communicating, then escalation will not be a problem.
Program managers are often not the ones prioritizing the work. They are often not the stakeholder management.
Do you think that Agile is the best way to manage a team's progress?
I want to give a book recommendation to anyone.
Welcome to the Ready Set Do podcast, where we learn from journeys of not experts who are just 2 steps ahead of us. I'm Naman Pandey, and in this episode featured not expert is Farah 2C. Farah is an engineering management student at Purdue University with extensive experience as a program/project manager in organizations such as Capital One Bank and Apple, having many coveted certifications under her belt, including Scrum, Safe, and Agile product management. Our discussion today is centered around PM roles, an umbrella that consists of product, project, and program management. We go over exactly what each of them entail, the overlaps as well as the differences, and how one can break into each of the above in great detail. Indeed, Farah takes us through all the skill sets that one has to cultivate to get to their PM role of choice, including the why. And spoiler alert, that can look very different based on which PM role you're targeting. And then finally, Farah shares some incredible resources that I've linked in the description below for you to get a strong grip on what is the Agile methodology. In keeping with our theme of learning from somebody that's just 2 steps ahead of us instead of an expert, my goal with this episode is to spotlight Farah's incredible career journey so far and share with you how you can break into your PM role of choice. This is the Ready Set Do podcast, and to support it, subscribe on YouTube and leave me up to a 5-star rating on Spotify or your favorite podcast app. Do also check out the links in description for more direct ways to support me. And now, my friends, without any further ado, here's Farah. Farah, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Saying hi to all the Ready Set Do podcast listeners.
Yeah, likewise. Really excited to dig into the really fascinating subject of I'm just going to say PM for now, because it's such a big umbrella term. There's so much that goes under it, and often there's just a lot of confusion about exactly what it entails. So we'll be getting into all of that, but just for our listeners to get some context around you and your background, do you mind just providing a really quick and dirty snapshot kind of your career so far, and the type of work that you've been doing in this field?
Yeah, of course. Well, I have about 7 years of experience doing project management, program management in Canadian financial technology, which is very relevant to my undergraduate degree. I have a math and physics degree from U of T. And now I'm pursuing my master's in engineering management at Purdue University. And I was lucky to have an internship at Apple as an EPM. And I hope to pursue the engineering program management/product management going forward.
That makes a lot of sense. And obviously, you don't need an expert to realize that Apple is just such a high ticket, option or a place to get your internship at. So are you willing to talk about how that experience was, how you applied and what that interview process was like for that particular internship?
Yeah, absolutely. I there's a long process of application and selection process for getting such an opportunity at Apple. I can't talk much about the product details, but as you know, I was very focused with a brief snapshot. I was very focused on getting recommendations to all the available internships. I was also a winter intake into MEM program, so
Mm-hmm.
I was very aware of the time crunch.
Mm.
So very focused on getting referrals and being able to showcase my past experience and the relevance of that experience into the internship. Qualities and the job requirements through my resume and through recommendations. I went through a four-step interview,
Wow.
not including the recruiter's screening call. And I was selected to join Apple AI/ML in Seattle as an engineering program manager. The role was, a lot of switch between product management and program management.
Hmm.
We didn't have a product manager as per se in our group, so we had to play the both roles interchangeably.
That's very fascinating. So, just for some context, I will share the one experience that I have had in this field, and obviously that didn't end up converting for me, which is what brought me to a completely different career track. But and the whole point of doing this is just so maybe listening to that you will be able to maybe comment on whether you had a similar experience, because I know you referenced that you're not willing to share exactly what was asked, which I completely understand. But I'm sure our listeners will kind of be looking at it from the point of, how do you prepare for that? Like, what are some skills, or what is the best way to, put oneself in the position to excel at these type of interviews? So in 2022, when I applied for the Google Technical Program Manager position, um, I only got through like one round. And in that, it was, I remember it being just a whole hour of, it was fairly intense actually. Like there was a lot of, I don't use the word lightly, but grilling really going on. And I remember one of the questions being, how would you explain SQL, or, just the primary key in SQL to a 5-year-old? And I thought that was such a great question. Like it's genuinely such a good question. And I ended up saying something. We don't know whether it was right or wrong, or if it was good or bad, but we'll just assume it probably wasn't good enough because it didn't make the cut. And that's how I knew that maybe I should have prepared for that. Like, because those type of questions, if you're prepared, it just becomes easier to have a plan of action, and then you're not on the spot in front of the interviewer trying to get your thoughts together. So was your experience similar, or, and going back, what are, I guess, some things that students can do to prepare themselves for these type of interviews?
Yeah, definitely very similar, Naman.
Okay.
And for me, it was also a lot of, as you know, I had 7 years of experience. So I had to do a whole unlearning of the
Mm-hmm.
past learning and start again as a student going through the internship interview process, because you really want to display and assure your interviewee of your ability to learn and your flexibility and agility through changes, and
Mm-hmm.
how well you can perform without being fully prepared for any situation. So that's one of the key things that I had to work very hard on, because myself I was. Before coming back to school and wanting to do my internship interview process, I was very familiar with my role, and most of my interviews was within my network, folks I know, products I'm familiar with. So to be able to showcase, hey, I'm starting all over again, and I am, willing to learn and put the effort that is required from an intern, from brand new field, brand new company, brand new country and culture. I'm willing to be adaptable enough to understand the
Mm-hmm.
situation and navigate, making the best decision based on the limited resources I have. So that's my number one answer. Number two is being yourself. I think,
Mm-hmm.
as I heard your conversation with UDJ, I watched it. One of my favorites. I follow him on YouTube, and
He's great. Yeah, he's so
yeah,
great.
you guys talked about saturation in the market, and reflecting the same concept into program management and product management is so important to be able to stand out and show that authentic self, that unique journey you went through as a person, as opposed to an identity or a program, or all these other things that thousands of other folks have gone through the same things. So being able to showcase that unique self of yours, who you are and what you have to offer through your own personal journey and everything you experienced as a person so far, that would be something that I think you would need to practice for.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my second answer to that. And third is practice, practice, practice. Do a
Hmm.
lot of practice. There are so many tools out there. You don't have to spend $1,000. There are tools that you can use and leverage, often provided by your university. And also working with a friend, reach out to people who have been through these interviews before. A lot of folks reach out to me, and I am very happy to spend time helping them. And I'm sure there are so many other people like me. I reach out to so many people, and they're so kind to help me at the same
Yeah,
time.
very
So
true.
definitely practice. This is something you need to put effort in, and you can't just wing it and make sure you get the best result.
That definitely rings true. I mean, at least the first and the third thing you mentioned are 100% spot on. If I can just apply that to my own experience, because yeah, I spoke to zero people about this. I just went online and I just looked at, I just Googled how to prepare for Google TPM, which is kind of ironic in itself. But what you're saying and what I agree is really what I should have done is reach out to other engineers that are in that position right now and find out about the type of work they do. It's not even necessarily tell me what you were asked in your interview, right? That's not the point. The point
Yes,
is understanding what type of work they were doing and how I can, as you said, adapt to showcase how I would fit in if I were asked to do all that same work. So that's really interesting. And I love that you call that out. From there, I'm kind of, thinking about this interplay between the three PMs. So product, program, and project management. So maybe I can share in a very, bare bones nutshell, you know, type of scenario, what those things mean to me. And then maybe you can correct me if I go somewhere or, just add more context.
sounds good.
So does that make sense? Okay. So we'll make this really snappy, right? So product management, I feel like is easier to tackle first because I think it's the most distinct of the three. So you are responsible for shipping. Either it can be an entire product itself or it can be features within a product. So say somebody wants to add, like a new voice message feature to say Messenger. So that would be the responsibility of a product manager who would have then, a team of engineers who would make sure that it's the requirement that users want and then kind of be that bridge between what's needed and what's being developed. So that's product right there. Project is one single track of, say, some company, it doesn't even need to be a product company, wants to do migration. They have certain tools and processes in across certain systems. They want to port these over to a new system. That entire thing is a quote unquote project. And then somebody has to manage that, make sure there's no deadlines being missed, things aren't going over budget, and all of those, those three things that are, I think it's budget, uh, schedule, and I think there's one more thing which maybe you can enlighten us. And then the third thing is program, which to me feels like you would be managing multiple projects all at once. So I'll pause there. That is my understanding of this subject, but maybe you could throw more light on anything I missed or add anything that I didn't cover.
Yeah, definitely. First, I start with the three things. It's called Iron Triangle. It's the time, the cost, and scope.
There you go.
That's something that project managers will have to know inside out for their project,
Yep.
and they're really the sole people responsible for ensuring everything's in balance and on checked, or at least be aware of at
Yep.
what stage those three things are. I very much agree with your explanation regarding product management, project management, and program management. For our audience, I want to take a step back
Hmm.
and provide a context for everything I'm going to say going forward. To mention, a lot of these roles, Naman, are very interchangeably used in different companies. So, what we talk about in terms of roles and responsibilities here really comes down to that organization's
Mm.
definition of that role, and sometimes it even gets to that specific team. So a product
Wow.
management in a product management in company X and product management in company Y might be doing very different things. But also a product management in company X in team A and a product management in company X in team B
Hmm.
might also be doing different things. So
Wow.
very
Okay.
much of it comes down to also even team agreements and what type of support would that delivery need at that very point in time. Even I also want to add this as an extra layer and cherry on top. Even a single person's role within a team evolves over time. So, what
Huh.
stage of product management you're in, initially, if it's a kickoff stage and design stage, you might need to be doing a lot more of exactly what you said, figure out the gap and the need. But eventually, as the delivery is in progress and the product is shipped, and enhancements are being added, so much of the work of product management is going to be prioritization of work, which would require understanding of the time scope and the budget. So
Huh.
I just want to add this context for the background of everything else I'm going to add, and just share my experience regarding the difference between these three P's.
Absolutely. That's perfect. Yep.
Thank you. Regarding the program management or product management, I'll start with those two first because, as you said, they're the most distinguishable. So,
Hmm.
to me, I always think about product management role being the navigator and the decision maker of which direction should we go, whereas the program manager is within the team and within the operation, making sure everything's working well inside. So a lot of stakeholder management, for example, outside of the team is being done by the product manager. A lot of the gap analysis, product analysis, user research, so much of understanding what should be done first in order to provide the best quality product to our customers, meeting their needs. That would be the job of product management. And this will have to be a very proactive role. They
Hmm.
have to be ahead of the market. They will have to be ahead of the company. They have to be aligned with the vision. They need to know all the other products in the industry and the way they're navigating, and also fully understand of the 3-4 steps ahead and the type of resources they would require for future navigation and future
Hmm.
enhancements, and make sure all of that exists within the team. So that's how I look at product management roles. So much of vision setting, vision alignment, goal setting, as well as prioritization, what should be done first in order to provide the best quality product, as well as now I'm going to get into quality control, but some type of quality control to make sure, the product created meets the requirements, and,
Makes sense. Yeah. And
make
then
the full.
also, right. And probably also do some sort of a, survey. Maybe survey isn't the best word, but get your beta version out and get feedback. Feedback is the word
Exactly.
I guess I was looking for. And what you're saying so far makes perfect sense. The only, I guess, question on that specifically around product management is, and I know you said it differs. So first of all, that was such a great call out. I actually had no idea, and I feel like that changes everything. So I'm really glad you shared that. But for the most part, do product managers need to have technical expertise? Like, are they in the weeds writing code, or more often than not, they're doing this other stuff that you talked
Yeah, that's a very good question. It definitely helps if you understand the technical skills required. And we're talking software here, but product could be anything. If they understand the technicalities and the engineering required to build the feature they're proposing to the team, it definitely helps. But the most high performing teams I've seen are the ones where product manager fully trusts the
about.
engineering team, and although they are understanding the language, they do not enroll hands on with the
Hmm.
code. They're not engaging, with the code, and fully trust the engineering team and engineering management with their decision making regarding architecture, regarding scoping, and how they see the work should be done. So
Hmm.
a lot of a product management answer is the what, and a lot of what the engineering does is the how of it.
Yeah,
So
that's so well put. Yeah, that makes total sense.
yeah, exactly. So I think it definitely helps, especially when you talk about the top tech companies in the world. It's definitely, I would say, a big plus, or maybe a must. I am
Mhm.
trying to not say strong words, maybe not a must, but it definitely helps to understand the technical aspect of the product you're building.
Mhm.
Let me say it this way, Naman. The way I look at it is these three roles being the CEO, the CTO, and the COO of the company. If you run every team like your own company, like your life depends on it, like every penny you make comes out of every product you sell, right? And it really helps you a lot when you put yourself in those shoes. To me, the CEO is always a product manager. The CTO
Mm.
is a technical team, and the COO is going to be the program manager slash project manager.
Wow. Huh. I mean, when you put it like that, it just kind of slots into place. It all makes sense. And actually, on that topic of being CEO, is there an element of Scrum Master type responsibilities that product managers would benefit from, or is that something that again they would have somebody like a dedicated, you know, I think the role is called a Scrum lead or something, right? So
Yeah.
is that interchangeable, or is that also one of the feathers in the proverbial ideal product manager cap?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't give a correct or wrong answer. There's no right or
Yeah,
wrong answer to
absolutely.
this.
Right,
I'll
right.
share my opinion, but I do let you know because I did spend a lot of my past life before coming back to school within the agile world and working with
Interesting.
agile teams. The best product managers I worked with are those who are CSM certified and
Mm.
are familiar with the concept of agile and really try to be agile and fully understand the full circle of daily check-in, proper planning, and retrospectives and demo at the end. So
Mhm.
that would require a full grasp of short iterative and incremental delivery, and the best product managers I work with are those who fully have that grasp. Now, would there be a scrum master product manager, overlaps with the role? Again, I think it goes back to the team. A lot of
Sure.
teams do not have a scrum master, so
Yeah.
the product manager will have to put on the hat. The con of this situation would be the overwhelmed, overworked product manager,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of work that goes into stakeholder management, product mission and vision, and everything you have to focus regarding the customer feedback. And a scrum master's job is really most of the operation and team performance and team productivity. I also have seen a lot of the times where a scrum master will have to step in to slow down the product manager in terms of, because they demand better, faster product, and the engineering team, although they set boundaries, there can be some disagreements at times. And I think having a scrum master who's a third person and can interject and say, hey, what if we find a middle ground between delivering the best quality the fastest versus delivering the most technically feasible? So my answer to that is there's pros and cons to having a product manager wearing both hats, but it's not impossible, and it will go back to the team on what do they decide on.
I just want to, take a little moment here and commend you on your ability to find the nuances that exist in all of this. I'm just kind of pleasantly surprised by how you're never like, no, this is it or that is it. You're like, both could be it, but this is what it all depends on, which I
That's
think
right.
it's just spot on for, I feel like myself and I hopefully for most of our listeners. But I really just wanted to, take a moment and, commend you on that. But and then yeah, so continuing before I detracted you from this road, we covered product management pretty well, I feel like. And then yeah, you were going to continue sharing about your experiences with the other two. So
Yeah,
if you don't mind,
definitely. I appreciate you saying that, Naman. And if you don't mind, I add a comment about it before I talk about
please,
program
please. Oh,
management.
absolutely.
I'm actually really passionate about the topic of team performance and team productivity. It's something I truly care about, and if it wasn't for this passion of mine to help people work better together, I might
Hmm.
have not left my very comfortable life in Toronto and come down to States to pursue my master's degree.
Yeah.
I really wanted to pursue the science of team academically,
Huh.
and it really means so much because I've seen it work. I've seen there being a science behind how to actually build the best quality product in the fastest way,
Hmm.
all while everyone's actually happy doing it. It's possible. It's called high performing team, and I think people should enjoy their work and everyone should get the high quality product they deserve. And a lot of it goes back to the science of how to fully understand the system within the which team operates. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and just real quick, I feel like both of us are Purdue MEM. Well, I'm an alum,
Yes.
but and you're going to be, but we're both associated with Purdue MEM.
Yes.
But in all my years of being a student and interacting with other students that are in the cohort, I feel like somehow, maybe this is on me more than anybody else, but I've actually never had somebody say this about their motivations for, trying to learn this. The most common thing you get is, oh, I'm an engineer and then I wanted to manage other engineers. So I'm studying engineering management, which makes perfect sense. But I think what you just laid out gives that entire experience of the degree just such a completely different flavor. And to me, that feels, a layer deeper than just, oh, it's time for the next step in my career. Like, it really sounds like you know exactly where your passion lies, and this degree, it would be the only thing really that would, put you or connect you to your future self, where you see yourself doing this. So
That's
yeah,
right.
just wanted to share that observation, but I do think that is really cool.
I appreciate you saying that. That's why I am specializing in systems engineering, to actually look more into understanding the way different components of the system operate together. And it's true. I think although I'm not unique, I see very few of the folks who come back to school after many years of experience. But it's often for a switching career,
Hmm.
whereas I like what I'm doing. I
Yeah.
want to better understand it
Correct.
and do it
Correct.
better. Yeah, that's right. I appreciate you saying that.
Of course.
I Yeah, big shout out Purdue MEM. Thank you
Oh
for
yeah.
making this
Boiler up.
possible. Boiler up. That's right. Now going back to program management.
Yep.
I think program management, as I mentioned, would be the COO of
Hmm.
the company slash team slash and the group of people operating together. A lot of it goes back to operations and how to, um, as you mentioned, the iron triangle, the
Yep.
scope, the time, and the budget of the project. It will often have to be at, if you want one to be very high, the other two would be low. If you
Hmm.
want, so it will all often have to be a compromise between the three, and that's why they call it a triangle.
Yep.
Um, Program management would require, in terms of preparation, it would require understanding a lot of the different elements into that program specifically.
Okay, I
So,
see.
for
Got it.
example, with the product, what really helps, as you mentioned, is a domain expertise. So, if you're working on credit cards, for example, it will help for you to fully understand the existing credit cards in the market and what goes into the credit card system that you're trying to build. Whereas with program management, a lot of it does help to understand the product, but it's more important to understand the delivery structure of this project. So you're no longer, I mean, again, it goes back to specific team or organization, but you're no longer defining specification or stories or
Hmm.
the breakdown of work. Program managers are often not the ones prioritizing the work. They are often not the stakeholder management. However,
Okay,
most
that's
of the
helpful.
Yeah, however, most of the reporting being done by a program manager. So, for leadership, they showcase we spent this much money with this many people to deliver this much work within this amount of time,
Mm,
basically. So, that would be a lot of tools, for example, like Gantt chart, which
mm,
would help so much for you to familiarize yourself with,
yeah,
or a metrics like throughput, how
right.
many
Critical
of the
path,
servers.
stuff like that, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Things like this would help a lot. And there are so many project management slash program management tools available out there that
Mm-hmm.
folks can take quick crash courses on, like Jira, like MS Project Management. There are so many others. But a lot of what you need as a program management is organizational skills.
Mm-hmm.
Be able to organize your work for yourself and for the people around you.
Yep.
So, if I were to say three main things you need as a program management, number one would definitely be organizational skills, because you don't want to miss a risk you want to raise to
Of course.
tomorrow,
Right.
because
Right.
oops, I forgot. you know that would be a big cost for all the dependent teams and the product and the leadership. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not something that is more tolerable for program manager. Second skills I would say a program manager needs to have is communication skills. You can never over communicate in this role. I
Mm,
cannot emphasize that enough. You will always have to be able to talk to the team, talk to the stakeholders, talk to the leadership. This will have to be also relationship building skills. It's not only about, hey, Naman, how much more is left to this work? It's
right. Yeah.
about,
You can't burn any bridges here, right? Because the moment you do
exactly.
that, the rest of the future of the project is, immediately in a problematic spot.
Jeopardy,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's really not just about, hey Naman, how much more work is left. It's more like, hey Naman, are you feeling better? You weren't feeling well on
Mhm.
Friday. I just wanted to check up on you. Some things like that. And
Yeah.
then you get back to me, it's like, hey, I'm feeling much better. I think I would be able to finish this by today. So a lot of it really goes back to relationship, but I'm categorizing relationship building under communication umbrella, and I
Of
think they're
course.
very
No,
highly
that
correlated.
makes
Yeah.
sense. 100%. Definitely agree on that. And also on the topic of communication, something that I've seen come up really just in my career, and I'm assuming other people might have seen this also, is that the ability to escalate at the right time. So okay, you've been tracking your golden triangle. One of those things seems at risk, but you think maybe it's still manageable, and you continue to think that, and then 4 days later it is definitely no longer manageable. So what advice can you share around when it is the best time to escalate, and are there any metrics that one could look at to quantify that if X happens, it's escalation time, stuff has hit the wall, and there is no getting out of this without escalation?
Yeah, Naman, that's $1 million question, my friend. And I think this is gonna make it to the YouTube beginning of the, of
That's so true.
that's $1 million question, my friend. When to escalate? Well, I will tell you the way I approach
Hmm?
escalation, sure. Um, Number one is you don't want escalation to be a surprise, especially to those you care about, like your direct manager, their manager, leadership. You do not want escalation to be a surprise. So
Mhm.
make sure as soon as you sense the possibility of delay, or I'm just putting time as a factor here, but
Mhm.
you could be going over budget, or you could be getting more work. As soon as you see the possibility of risk, raise it. Just talk
Okay.
about it casually. Hey, by the way, this happened. Just want to let you know I'm going to take this step to make sure I am going to mitigate it. But if it doesn't happen, that will be a risk. So
Mhm.
make sure an escalation is not a surprise and is initially informally communicated in some sort of way. That's how I approach it. In terms of metrics, it really does vary in all
Yeah.
teams based on what they measure.
Mhm.
For example, if you have teams if you're working on a customer facing product and you have marketing teams that have already advertised a a release of a feature, you do not want to go over time in these. You can go over budget, you can do less of scope, but you do not want to go over time on these. So different measurements are, it very much depends on the team or the type of product. But I would say make sure, again, going back to relationship building, make sure you have the right support in your team or in your organization who are
Hmm.
your champions and are familiar of everything happening in your world, even with a
Hmm.
slight little inconvenience. So then as soon as that slight little inconvenience becomes a big inconvenience or becomes a big risk, they are already familiar and they're your champion, and somehow a shield in front of leadership or all the other areas where there is going to be some negotiation needed because of the risk imposed. And also be on top of mitigation.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah, that's a big
always,
one.
yeah, it's always good to, in terms of escalation, it's always good to talk about mitigation right after escalation. So, hey, Naman, we're going to be late in delivering this feature, but if we remove option B and C, we might be able to meet on time.
Mm.
Or, but if you pay me this much more, I can bring in someone who can fix this. So
Yeah,
make sure you always have plan B and C in place. And this again comes back with organizational skills, being able to see ahead of time, being prepared as you're doing your reporting, as well as communication skills. So you make sure it's not a surprise for everybody.
I love the, two main call outs for me from what you just laid out was, and I don't even know which one I like more, but the first one being that if you're just constantly communicating, then escalation will not be a problem because, as you said, it won't be a surprise to begin with. You had already communicated that, and you can even just get on top of all of that simply by just communicating as much as possible, as you said. So I love how that just one directive covers that aspect of escalation as well. And then the second thing I think is just a classic, don't come to me with a problem, come to me with a solution. And
Yes.
we hear this all the time, and we know it makes sense, but it's
Yeah.
always interesting to me to see just how many places it shows up. Just this very simple concept that when you're going to somebody that's higher in the power hierarchy, maybe power isn't the right word, but in the corporate
Yeah.
hierarchy than you,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not your job to add to their problems. It is potentially your job to go to them with a solution, so at least they have a starting off point on how to address a problem that you went with. So
That's
yeah.
very true. That's exactly right. I think it's also important to just point out it's not really about their hierarchical position. It's also about the higher you go, the lesser you know about what's on the ground. So you
That's true.
providing
Yeah.
options help them understand what are the feasible possibilities in the team. So you say we can do this with these pros and cons, or we can do this with these pros and cons. So definitely. I do want to mention the third skill that I think is very, very important for
Please.
a program manager.
Yeah.
And that is the ability to navigate through change.
Mm.
And this is a very critical one. And a bit of vulnerability here, maybe the one I struggle with and I'm
Interesting.
working on. I'm
Yeah.
working on very, very much and try to be better at it. But you spend so much time passionately caring about a certain deadline to deliver a feature and dedicate so much of your time
Hmm.
and effort into making sure everything happens as you wish, and just the last week before release something goes wrong. And trust me, this has happened way too many times in my career. It's not a rare occasion, and everything changes. So
Mm.
being able to accept that all of that is going to change now, and let's find the next most feasible approach without calling everything else a waste, and making sure the path forward is towards success is
Mhm.
a very important skill. And it requires a certain mental clarity
Yep.
as well as logical decision making and negotiation skills with yourself and the team. And also, as a program manager, again, the COO, the Director of Chief Operating Officer, you will also have to navigate the team. So there might be so many conflict management
Yeah.
arising. So there would be
Yeah.
disagreements as sudden changes happen, and technical team and the product team, business might have different perspective, marketing might have different perspective. I would always think this is the job of a program manager to keep the calm of everyone and
Mhm.
find the middle ground as the third perspective into the matter. So you will have to not only be able to adapt to change, but also have the buy-in and find the middle ground and negotiation skills with everybody else in the team to make sure you make the right decision going forward. So adaptability, agility, and flexibility to accept the change
Yeah.
and find a path forward. It
Right.
would be the third skill that is very hard to train for unless you
Seriously, yeah,
are in a
I was just
situation.
going to say, yeah, how do you train for that? Like, how do you do a mock drill training course for a crisis? It
Yeah,
feels almost counterintuitive. Yeah.
that is very hard. And this is why I always tell folks who reach out to me for resume help and resume review, I always tell them mention your teamwork anywhere you worked with the team as much as
Hmm. Hmm.
possible, because things like this happen with the team and you want to showcase your negotiation skills, your teamwork ability. These are the things that help with navigating going forward, conflict management.
Yeah.
So similar smaller scale situation that could happen in a project you deliver with a course, or a little out of school, out of work, personal project you've been working on. Or if you were in any sport
Right.
team also has very similar. For example, they work very hard to qualify for a league and they don't make it, so what's
Yeah.
the next thing? So a
Yeah.
lot of these things can showcase to
Or
your
even clubs,
potential.
right? Clubs and
But
student
student health.
organizations. Exactly. Yeah. I feel like
Exactly.
all of those would be the, most fertile soil for this type of thing. I
Exactly.
I feel like we're covering such amazing nuance here. I feel like all three of these PMs could have been an episode by themselves. And,
Yeah, very
maybe
much.
that is something we can explore in the future. But just to close the hatchet, do you want to close us out by, well, close out as in for just this, for the PM umbrella stuff, go over what entails the entire field of project management? It feels like to me, after what we've covered, again, I could be wrong, but it sounds like a little bit, it's just like a mini baby version of program management. But I have a feeling that it's not. So I'll let you I'll let you
Yeah.
continue from here.
In my perspective, it is very interchangeably used, program
Yeah.
and project
That's what I
management.
thought. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think so much of program management is more than just project management. Project management would be a set of skills to have in terms of really how to manage a project, whereas a program involves more reporting to leadership, more maybe stakeholder management, maybe
Mhm.
documentation. Update maybe so much of the more within operation of the team and the way they work with dependent teams around them. So to me, program management, as you said exactly, is more project management. But Naman, if I were to make it three, because you did mention three, I do want to add the quality assurance into this tree.
Okay.
Now, in big tech organizations, if we're talking software, so much of the quality assurance is incorporated within the algorithm, except
Yeah.
for a very little bit of user testing that is often done with the product team. Not much of the testing is being done as is known, but I don't think that's the case with manufacturing. And I'm
True.
not an expert in the field. I think there are so many
Yeah.
folks who can talk more about it,
Yeah.
but quality management and quality assurance is also a very, very important pillar that would be, to me, the third element. If there's engineering, product management, program management, then I think quality engineers are also a big part of it, because we're not talking technical roles, so everything technical separate, but then it would be product, program, and quality assurance. And
Interesting. Interesting. And so, and I mean, that actually unlocks this. It really segues really well into the question I had for you next, which was, of late we have been seeing a big focus, especially by big tech, and really any big company really. But there's this push towards the promotion of individual contributor roles of all the three PM roles that we mentioned. So from what you've shared with us here today, it feels like for product managers, I honestly don't even know what they could possibly be doing more than what they're already doing. It really does feel like their plates are completely full. I can see if somebody had to make that argument for program slash project managers, that maybe they should be contributing more individually. um I can see that, but I'm curious to hear your take on the direction this is headed and what the future holds for these positions,
Yeah.
starting like 2025, we'll say.
Yeah, definitely. It's I can share. I operated as an individual contributor when I was in Canada as a program manager. I can share my perspective into the journey,
Hmm.
but it's slightly different south of the border here in States.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
also, as we know, 2022, 2023 were the biggest layoff years
Yeah.
of the tech
Yeah.
industry since the dot-com boom in
Yeah.
2004. So I personally think this is going to change so much about individual contributor aspect, and it could also be partially the cause of companies pushing towards hiring individual contributor, because as I'm sure you know, closing a contract does not mean firing someone or laying
Correct.
off. So
Correct.
definitely comes with that. Now, I did listen to your conversation with Sanjeev. You guys talked about risk. And I think so much of individual contributor versus full time position goes back to risk. And for a
Yeah,
person
that's a
to
good point.
analyze where in life they are and what they're hoping to get out of that role or that job, and see how well they would be able to risk,
Hmm.
certain areas, because there's pros and cons with both.
Absolutely.
Um,
Like, do you want a health insurance? That that's
exactly,
that's a risk. That's a risk
exactly.
right there. Yeah.
Health insurance is a perfect, or paid time off.
Yep.
For example, for ladies, maternity leave. Do you care
Hmm.
about being able to take? Now, I think it's 6 months here in States. In Canada, we have up to a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I am
so
aware of that. Yeah.
yeah, so things like that is what someone would have to see where they are in life if they're able to risk it. I think it would very much depend on the role, but on average, an individual contributor makes more per hour than a full-time person does in exchange for the risk they're
Correct.
taking.
Exactly.
So would you need a big cash upfront, or not? Do you care about job stability?
Yeah.
Is
Or how
that
do you
going?
even find contracts? That's another big one, right? It's not guaranteed. Like, what if
Ex-
your contract ends and you have nothing planned in the future, and then you're
ex-
just going door to door trying to find where your next paycheck comes from?
yeah,
Definitely makes sense. Yeah.
exactly. That's exactly right. So much of the layoff that happened, although it was mass and huge, but they provide some support packages for
Yeah.
individuals up to few months after they're no longer working with the company until they can find their next position. So, so much of this is going to be the risk that you're taking, whereas with a contractor, the day the contract ends, that's it.
Makes sense. And then for this last section, I really want to pick your brain about the subject that you shared that you're passionate about, and I think that was really an interesting call out because I mean, for multiple reasons. The biggest being I just really like talking to people about things that they're passionate about. What bigger reason is there to talk to somebody about something? So I kind of want to pick your brain about team performance and best ways or best practices to get to that. And I want to start off with an intentionally kind of, we'll just say hot take, a little bit maybe. So, do you think, yes or no, that agile or scrum, actually agile is the technically the right word, is the best way to manage a team's progress? Yes or no? And then I would love it if you could shed some more light into a lot of agile slander that I've been seeing lately, some of which I will confess make sense in my mind.
I can't give yes or no answer because it depends on the team I'm on, but I'll say yes.
Okay, hold on. So let me help you. Let me help you break down some more constraints. So we'll say it's a tech team, like they're trying to ship a a technique or a software product. We'll say the team size is 10 members, and I guess yeah. What are some other like placeholders that we can proceed with, just so you can give a slightly more balanced answer?
Yeah, definitely. I'll say yes. Now,
Okay,
I
interesting.
also
Okay.
let your audience know that my opinion in this is biased. I got my first certified Scrum Master certificate from Boutique in Canada. Shout
Mhm.
out Boutique, doing advertisement for this.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll reach
But
out if they want to sponsor this.
yeah,
I'm just kidding. There's no
this
way.
is this is back in August 2016. So
Oh boy.
tell me,
Okay.
how many years is this? Eight
Like,
years
yeah,
or
give or
even?
take. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's my first introduction. I learned about Scrum right then. I learned about Kanban. Squirrel North, another shout out to folks who are providing agile trainings in Toronto. I worked with them, with their founders back then. The company wasn't there, like back in 2016,
Okay.
2017. I learned so much about XP, which is very technically heavy agile software development.
Hmm.
I work with Kanban, Scrum, Safe. I worked a little bit, Safe certified.
Yep.
I was very active within agile community in Toronto, and I really liked it because one of the agile's main principles is people and interactions
Hmm.
over processes and things. And there is four main,
Interesting.
yeah, four main things they have. And four main, I think there's 12 principles, but
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's very people centered,
That's very
very.
interesting. Yeah. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's
Yeah.
very much about fully understanding what the user needs as a person,
Hmm.
and fully understanding what the team is capable of around,
Hmm.
and creating the process around that. When I first entered the agile world, I really sensed the gap in strong governance because I was in banking technology as well, and
Okay.
it's very different in financial sector. Anyone working in financial sector is familiar with very high regulation. If you're in healthcare, if you're in financial
Yeah.
sector, if you're in government and regulations, they have very rigid firm governance systems, and that really takes away the ability to innovate in 2024. You should be able to adapt to the change and adapt faster and do it
Hmm.
without the pressure on your team members and users as well. So this is why I was passionate about agile. I want to give a book recommendation to anyone
Please.
who cares about high performing team. Please read the Phoenix Project, um, by Dr. Kim, Jean Kim. And please read 10,000 Hours by Dr. Carl Erickson.
Okay.
He passed away in COVID in Florida, but I was talking with him one on one on the email
Oh
to,
wow.
yeah, to better understand his perspective towards productivity and being able to actually deliver more without feeling more pressure and burned out, and how much that amplifies when you are in the right setting of the team. If you have people performing based on their skills and passions and their area of contribution, and collaborate well together, it creates something called high performing team, where everyone would be happy doing what they do, and what they do would be the best out there.
Hmm.
So I'm truly passionate about this. I can talk a lot more about
No,
it whenever
I
you
can,
want.
yeah, I can tell. And then for the resources, I'll be sure to link both these books in the show note descriptions for anybody that's looking for a link to a link to that. So thanks for sharing that. But I guess coming back, just in really in terms of agile slander, um, the thing that I've heard the most, or in my head at least, the thing that makes somewhat sense in my head is actually exactly what you said about it focuses on people over processes. And some people have the opinion that it stifles innovation by doing so. So say a developer that has been written, a user story of, say, like 15 hours that week. Say that developer finishes his 15 hours, and because of agile now he is constrained to not doing more. So maybe this person could have written, like, he is, let's say, like a 10x developer or a top 10% developer. He could have written more code that week, but he was not able to do that, and thereby the team's overall progress was stifled because of the methodology itself. And I get that this is like a very intentionally cherry picked corner case, probably doesn't happen all too often, but I'm looking, or I'm curious to your take on this particular criticism that some people have about agile.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for asking that. So I do want to mention a bad framework implemented well is better than the best framework implemented wrong. So I have seen so much of agile being misused. People set up
Interesting.
Jira and just call it agile. Like it's
Interesting.
truly,
Okay.
yeah, it's
Hmm.
truly not that. I it's the best possible methodology and process implemented wrong causes a lot more problems. So agile is no exception to that. I don't know where would in the world would a developer be asked to not develop more in a sprint. The thing is,
Uh-huh.
line of code is actually, fun fact, was Google's productivity measure between in early 2000s for about 7-8 years as
Okay.
evaluation technique, and they very immediately realize it's causing more complication
Mhm.
because developers end up writing more lines of codes and it just
Oh,
overcomplicates the code. Something that could be one line.
interesting.
They call it LOC paradox. Google it, folks. It's very interesting. So then
Yeah,
they
that's
learned
so
that
cool. Yeah.
they learn the evaluation technique and the metrics they measure actually impacts the way team operates and their behavior. So we have a short time frame, we have a small increment we have to deliver in that short frame, and we're going to collaborate, all of us, cross functionally together. So everyone take a piece of this work to make sure by the end of that small time we have delivered that small chunk. That's how
Interesting.
I see agile. Now, yes, I do agree with you that it might be implemented falsely or
Yeah,
in a very
obviously.
bad way.
So
Exactly.
from what you're saying, because of the philosophy of agile, what that team should do is that next week they should give that developer like 25 whatever user stories worth of, or 25 points worth of user stories, and adapt, as you said, to what's going on. And that is, I agree 100%, the correct way to implement that, in that because they saw that they were leaving stuff on the table, let's not continue to do that next week onwards. That's literally the whole point of this not being a waterfall where
Exactly.
you cannot go back and change requirements, or if something isn't needed, or you have two new members that join the team, etc. So
Exactly. Just
that
like
all makes
individuals and interactions over
yeah,
processes and things, there's no firm
exactly.
way of doing anything.
Exactly. So yeah, maybe this is actually, and so I'm actually currently considering getting the CSM also. So I am curious to see how that experience is like for me, and would love to you know like remain connected to share about how that whole experience was for me, and how much it's changed and all of that. But Farah, I really want to thank you today for taking us through all of the amazing nuances that you shared with this rather complicated subject. And I say complicated because a lot of times it feels to me with these three things, the three PMs and quality assurance, I didn't even know that was a thing that's embedded in there, but apparently it is. And it always felt to me like untangling the threads of a yarn, like where does one end, where does the other begin, what's going on, why are they the same color? It was just such a mess in my head, but I feel like literally from this 1 hour conversation, I'm now able to approach that subject in a much more less scatterbrained fashion. Like I understand what the three are, how they interact with each other, but also how they exist individually. So thank you so much for doing that. I'm sure anybody that watches this will take away immense value. And yeah, really, really want to thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me, Naman. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for you. I'm following you, and I really love your content. Just don't forget, be agile.
That's true. It is actually applicable to areas in life other than high performing teams, because I like my podcast only has two people, so barely even a team. But there are certainly things I could be doing today to make my processes more agile, and maybe this is a call to action for me to do just that. So
Thank you.
thank
Best
you
of
so
luck.
much. Appreciate it.
Bye.
That brings us to the end of episode 38 of the Ready Set Do podcast. Thank you all for sharing these conversations with those that continue to benefit from them. If you would like to support me, the easiest way to do that is by subscribing to me on YouTube, leaving me up to a 5-star rating on Spotify or your favorite podcast app, and telling all of your friends about what an incredible podcast this is. Catch you all in the next one. New episodes every Wednesday.